Hey folks, welcome back. I've got a couple projects in the works, and this is one of them that I'm really excited about. I think I showed you guys on the short that I had a few parts for a Telecaster build, and I started putting some of them together, and I've gotten a few more since the short. But this is one of three Telecasters that I'm going to finish in this series. I'm going to just go ahead and put them all in the same series because I was bad. I didn't do all the filming on the assembly on this one because I just got so excited about it. But I'm going to finish it up. I'm going to put the strings on it, cut the nut slots, and set the action and intonation and all that good stuff. So that'll be this guitar. I've got another one that I'm doing. The other one that I'm doing is going to be a brown one with a white pearloid pickguard and a maple neck from a Mexican Squire. And then I've got a third one that I'm going to do, and I haven't decided on the body for that one yet, but I've got a neck that's a baritone neck from a Squire Telecaster. So that one, I may go like full metal guitar with it and just make it sound like really growly with the humbuckers and stuff. So we'll see. But that's my thinking. So anyway, let's get started on this one today. I'm going to use the new format. I'm going to speed things up. I'm gonna, narrate over the top, and we'll see how that goes. But just let me know if you like these videos, and we'll get started on this one today. Hey, one thing I wanted to say before I get started with any fast motion or anything about the parts in this guitar. So this is a Fender replacement neck that you can order off of Amazon or eBay or whatever. But it's a roasted maple one, so it's really cool. And it came with a set of Fender tuners that are nice. I've got a real Fender bridge, the patent pending logo one, and got a set of compensated saddles installed on that. I've got awesome electronics in here. I've got all cloth wiring. I've got CTS pots with the solid shafts, and I've got an actual CRL USA switch in here with the coil spring on it. That thing's really cool. Most of the other little small parts on here are all Fender. The Fender strap buttons, the Fender pickguard screws, the Fender string ferrules underneath, and it's just really quality. The only things I couldn't get that were original Fender, at least for a decent price, were this plate, which I actually found one that's a really nice quality plate that's a reproduction, and then I've got these vintage forge knobs that are actually, I think, better than the Fender knobs. And then pickup wise, I put in a set of this 64 pure vintage Telecaster pickups, and man, they look sweet. And of course they're all cloth wired and everything, so this thing feels really good, and I don't even have strings on it yet, and I haven't heard it, so I'm excited to get started on this. I always find this so satisfying, so I'm just gonna show you guys peeling the plastic off a brand new pickguard. It's so stupid, but it's so much fun. There you go, that's your porn for the day. So in order to get any measurements at all on this thing, I've got to get a set of strings on it. So I started with a set of Ernie Ball 9 to 46 hybrid slinky strings like I normally use on most of my builds. And I'm running them all through the bridge first here, just so I don't have to keep lifting the guitar up and down as I string this thing up. I almost forgot to tell you guys, this body is a pine body, and it's kind of a knotty pine body. As you can see, it's kind of cool. I get these from a distributor on eBay, and he makes a really pretty body, really fine product, and it's a stain with a nitrocellulose lacquer coating on it that's real thin, so it's super resonant and just feels really good. So if you've watched me string up guitars before, this is just old hat here. Basically, I guess you can see my other videos on this, but each time I string one, I try to get around 2 to 3 wraps around each post, and I usually try to do that by measuring out about 2 tuners worth of slack on each string. After I finished stringing, I realized that the neck pickup was touching the strings, so I slid a pencil under the strings to raise the strings up off the pickup enough to remove the pick guard. With that done, I decided to work on the action a little bit, which really, these are pretty simple saddles to adjust. They just take a standard screwdriver, and I set the action to about 70 thousandths initially because I haven't cut the nut slots yet. With the pickup height roughly adjusted, I can then set the pick guard back in place. The Fender necks, when they're brand new, come with a slotted nut that has slots that are really no deeper than just a suggestion of where the string goes. So you actually have to finish slotting the nut out when the guitar is assembled. So it's a tedious process. I do recommend, if you want to try this, go watch my Harmony Discovery video, part 4, and it shows it in much more detail. I have a set of nut files that I'll lay out on the table before I start, and I usually pick 6 of them that are pretty close in width to the gauge of the strings that I'm using. You know, just a little bit bigger, a few thousandths bigger maybe. And I'll just go through the nut slots one at a time. I don't have any sort of depth gauge, so that makes it a little bit harder, and I have to keep continually filing a little bit, taking the string off the nut, you know, putting it back on, and measuring the distance between the first fret and the string. You know, I'm looking for 20 thousandths, and I kind of try to creep up on it, and that's what takes me so long. They do make tools that are specifically for looking at the nut slot depth while you're filing, and that can save you a lot of time. I just don't have one yet. This is a bone nut, so it cuts fairly slowly, but you have to remember when you're doing this that the biggest risk you run is cutting the nut slot too deep. And if you go too deep, there's really no good way to fix it. You can try with super glue, but it never turns out great. And remember that the thin nut slot files cut a lot faster than the thicker nut slot files, so be careful on those high strings. So I moved on to check neck relief after that, and I put a capo on the first fret, and I always fret the 17th fret with my right hand, and my left hand checks the space between the string and the 8th fret with a feeler gauge. This neck has a 9.5 inch radius, which calls for 12 thousandths of neck relief according to the Fender spec, so I ended up having to loosen the truss rod just a bit to achieve that. And then I moved on to set the pickup heights. I set those to 4/64ths on the bass side and 3/64ths on the treble side. Those measurements are taken with the last fret fretted. And then I moved on here to check the action one more time, because every time you change one setting, especially when you're filing a nut slot, it's going to change every other setting. So I double check all my action and all my strings, and I check for any buzzing frets anywhere above the 12th fret as well. I've got to say the quality control on these Fender replacement necks is pretty top notch, because there was no problems. When I finished that, I gave it a rough tune-up, and then I just couldn't resist picking it up and playing it for a second. It's a really sweet guitar. But it wasn't done yet. You know, when you're building these things and you've got so many different adjustments that can affect each other, you kind of have to go back and recheck everything. And you know, when I was setting the action first, I set it too high because I was trying to slot the nuts, which would also lower the action, and yada yada. So in this clip, I'm really just checking to make sure I still have 20 thousandths of space between the first fret and the strings. And if it's a little bit too high, I'll go back and file the nut again, just like I did earlier, one string at a time. It's tedious, but you know, rechecking all these specs makes sure that you have a perfectly playing guitar. One of the only parts I haven't installed on the guitar yet was the string tree, so I took that opportunity to do that here. I just put a piece of masking tape down on the headstock and marked where I wanted it to be. Then I took a punch, made a spot for a pilot hole, drilled the pilot hole, and then I loosely installed the string tree so that I could give it a little bit of a tap on top with a hammer, and that would mark the spot where that extra little post is on these Fender string trees. And then I drilled a pilot hole for the post and reinstalled the string tree. That was one of the last pieces of hardware to go on, but I did need to reinstall the pickguard screws from earlier. And then the absolute last piece of hardware is this switch tip I made from a 45 bullet, and I put a little insert in it that I 3D printed. Man, the brass on that thing really matches the brass saddles and sets it off great. Well, that's one Telecaster down, and I've got 2 more to go. I'm really excited about the next two because this one turned out so great. Again, if you guys like my videos, be sure to subscribe to my channel and please like them. Leave a comment if you like, and I welcome all the feedback that I get, and I appreciate you guys watching. So I'll see you guys on the next one.